Hi, I'm Robert Wilsmore and this is Collaboration, a brief introduction to Toast Theory, Part 1, The Song of a Thousand Songs. What if we perceive the whole of popular music as one massive collaborative project, the combined work of composers, performers, producers, listeners, all types of musicians whose efforts have gone into constructing this vast phenomenon? We often speak of popular music as a thing with a life of its own, so let us give this natural predilection some substance, some value, rather than just as a passing metaphor. If the genius author is still part of the construction of value, then we have as genius authors the joint authors of the pop project, where the many songs are no longer seen as an immense number of singularities, but as an authored entity in itself. This magnum opus that encompasses the entire of pop has a name. It is one song called The Song of a Thousand Songs and is composed and performed by a group called The And. So that's the opening paragraph from a chapter called The Song of a Thousand Songs, Popular Music as Distributed Collaboration, Toast Theory Part 1, that will be coming out in a book that Chris Thompson and myself are writing called Co-Production, Collaborative Practices in Music Production. That particular chapter, and in fact that paragraph, is as it was in 2014 at a conference at Leeds College of Music on popular music as distributed collaboration. And if you're familiar with your Vera John Steiner modes of collaboration, then you'll have a good idea of what we mean by distributed. So we have a central axiom to this theory, which is that musical phrases in which we perceive resemblance operate through the same modes of relationship, regardless of whether they occur within one piece of music or in separate pieces of music. So what does that mean? Okay, so when we hear a theme develop in a symphony, we heap praise on an author. When we hear two similar themes in different songs, we heap criticism upon one of the authors. Yet in terms of what we hear, there may be no difference at all in these two scenarios. So we're familiar with a theme in a symphony, and that theme develops. And one of the things that the author is, the composer, is praised for is how they can brilliantly change and manipulate this theme, and it twists and it turns. And isn't that fantastic? And aren't they a genius? However, if we hear a song with a theme in it, and we hear a different song, something that sounds a bit similar, there's criticism involved. Normally, maybe the first composer, songwriter is said, wow, they're genius, and somebody's copied them, they've plagiarised it. And yet, you might just be hearing what could be a development of a tune, as you would in a symphony. So why is that fine for Beethoven to do it, but not fine for two songwriters to do it? So there's something going on there that's not about the sound and the way we hear those phrases in themselves. It's something else. And so why do we call it Toast Theory? Well, The Song of a Thousand Songs is its original title, and that kind of got reduced down because that was too long, to its initials, an acronym SOAT, which doesn't really work, so we just called it Toast. So this notion of all popular music as just one song, is it a bit far-fetched? Well, let's have a look at other ideas then. So this is Robert Hobbs, who wrote this essay actually an art catalogue for an exhibition on collaborative art. And he says this: I would like to propose that collaboration is, in essence, nothing more or less than influence positively perceived as part of an ongoing cultural dialogue. So we're talking about influence and cultural dialogue, and that's collaboration. So in this sense, all the world is collaborating on the pop project, and this is an all the world's a stage type approach. And all the world, in this case, is a band, and we've given that band a name, which is The And. The And being the conjunctive. So, all the world's a stage, but how can it be considered as just one song? Well, this is where we can turn to Deleuze and Guattari, and their notion of nullifying endings and beginnings, and asking us to challenge if endings and beginnings really are as solid and as firm as we thought they are. A very kind of typical postmodernist approach to dismantling things that we once thought were solid and immovable. And this comes from a chapter in the opening chapter in 1,000 Plateaus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia, on the concept of the rhizome. And you'll notice the theme through here: 1,000 plateaus, 1,000, song of 1,000 songs. So we're taking a lot from Deleuze and Guattari. So Chris and I wrote this in an article about mixing, which is, if songs are separated largely by non-musical signifiers, the composers, the song titles, etc., we can nullify endings and beginnings, for these starts and finishes are nothing more than segmentation caused by the effect of imposing non-audio signifiers onto audio. Okay, so you need some basic understanding perhaps of semiotics in terms of signification here. But we're thinking about non-audio signifiers. What do we mean? We're really talking about the importance of things that aren't about the sound on how we call something a beginning or an ending. So signs or signifiers that are not music, can't think of a better term at the moment. All terms are difficult to define, particularly in a postmodernist context. So signs that are not music, musical or sonic are things like the name of the artist, the name of the song, the physical record or the file, or the that song as it appears separated on your Spotify playlist. So these things are not, in a sense, the sound themselves. There's something else that are signifiers that it means it's a separate thing of its own. But if we take those away, then actually we can just look at what the sonic signifiers might be. And there are typical sonic signifiers. The perfect cadence, for example, is one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the song has come to an end. But we're just trying to disentangle the audio signifiers and non-audio signifiers on beginnings and ends. So when we do this, there are no longer identifiable ones of songs. The removal of the artificial beginnings and ends has shown that they are actually all joined together. In fact, it is not correct to say that they are joined at all. Once we have removed the sticky labels marked beginning and end, we see underneath that there is nothing but continuity. So in a sense, we're looking at all these songs, and the only reason that they look separate is because they've got these endings and beginnings that we can peel off. And once we peeled off all of those endings and beginnings, then we'll just see this big thing, this multiplicity that is the Song of 1,000 Songs. And this is one of the ideas it comes from, the rhizome. A rhizome has no beginning or end. It is always in the middle, between things, interbeing, intermezzo. The tree is filiation, but the rhizome is alliance, uniquely alliance. The tree imposes the verb to be, but the fabric of the rhizome is the conjunction and. This conjunction carries enough force to shake and uproot the verb to be. So, I'll stop this here because it's just a short introduction, but to be demonstrated yet is how we go about proving this, or at least showing how this concept is worthy of consideration. That is, that musical phrases in which we perceive resemblance operate through the same modes of relationship, regardless of whether they occur within one piece of music or in separate pieces of music. So, to be continued in the next episode. Toast Theory will return in Toast Theory Part 2. Really short, should have thought of a better title really than Toast Theory Part 2. Maybe Part 2, The Butter Melts, I don't know, I'm not sure. Oh, and that, by the way, is the logo for the And ensemble. A musical stave with an ampersand on it. So 3 of them here to represent and. Okay, thanks all. I just stopped this.